Welcome to this Nerd News Roundtable from Nerd Week Live, the folks here at Nerd Caliber. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, and Burley_adopter on Twitter for as long as there's a Twitter, as a writer, as a journalist, a tech journalist. Tonight's topic is going to be about the AI art controversy. I'm not even sure we can call it a controversy at this point. The issues surrounding the recent rise in AI art online and in your face. Joining me tonight to talk about this pretty timely topic, we're going to start for me, which is straight below me in my little window here, and that would be Mo. Please introduce yourself if you would.
Hey, I'm Mo. I'm also known as Mono's Design on social medias. I'm a creative director at Otakus with Attitude. So they basically do like nightlife, cosplay and photography, things like that, here in New York City. And I'm also a senior art director at Sparks and Honey. And we also tap into AI a bit, into technologies, and I do some product design there too. So somewhat, relevant here.
All right, cool. I don't think anybody needs to be introduced to him, but please do introduce yourself, Ben.
Oh. Hi, I'm Benn Robbins, and I'm co-owner of Robbins Studios, Photography and Fine Art. Been doing photography and other types of fine art, I guess you can say. Great.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, it's fine. Like painting and illustration and graphic design and video, film, pretty much since the 90s, and professional photography since the early 2000s, cosplay photographer, and just all around artist type guy. I go by Bucket 1138 with 2 Ks, BUKKET 1138, or you can find us at Robbins Studios, one word, on all the social medias. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. And our resident Santa, gotta love that beard, man. Greg, if you would.
Hello, I am RodneyBot 2.0 artificial intelligence processor.
If you actually do wind up getting actual artificial intelligence, can you give me some? I'm getting old.
I have very little natural human intelligence to start with, so I need all the help I can get. Yeah, all kidding aside, folks. Gregg Snider, associate editor here at Nerd Caliber as well. I've been working with all these wonderful people for many years. I can actually, in all good truth, say that Ben and Rodney have been two huge influences for me when I got started doing photography many years ago.
I was just going to say, I think I'm responsible for Rodney 2.0.
Literally both of you are responsible, because I cosplayed Rodney after talking to Ben about the idea, and I borrowed Ben and Liz's camera so that I could actually have a Canon to do the job properly. And I had so much fun doing cosplay photography 10 years ago now, literally
crazy.
The next week
the first cape.
Yep.
Yeah, the first cape. What can I sell to go buy a camera while I'm unemployed and have no money to spend on cameras, but I have to have a camera. And it's been all steam ahead since then. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, Wonderllama. That's been one of my monikers for many years. And if you're in the Boston area, you may know us from Red Raven Studios. We are a photography studio. We do a lot of concept work, a lot of set design, prop design. We did a big project last year with Ben and Liz. I got to be an associate. What would you call me for that? There's like your bitch. That's your bitch. It was great.
He was
associate, at least.
Associate
concept creator.
Right. That's a professional. That's a professional term.
Yes.
Right.
But I also
associate producer.
Slash bitch.
Associate producer.
Slash bitch.
Yeah. Slash
I
bitch.
also have a background in culinary arts, so I mean, for that project in particular, it was a good example. I've done a lot of table dressing stuff, so predominantly photography as far as creative work goes, but also a cosplayer, so have made, built, acquired, assembled lots and lots of projects over there, cosplay projects over the years.
Now, I'm going to try to do this really quickly. Here's the boring part, folks. I want to explain what this technology is. So please bear with me. I'll try to make this fast. Greg, I know you know that's not possible, but I'll try. So what these artificial intelligence programs are, and there are multiple versions out there, are language learning models. The idea at a high level concept is that they're teaching artificial intelligence programs how to take natural language text inputs to be able to output something that is not entirely 100% rational, but expressive and subjective as to whether the goal has been met. Subjective as opposed to objective. If you produce something that either works or doesn't, it's objective. Subjective is that the person who put in the text prompt says, maybe it worked, maybe it's close, maybe it's perfect, but it's somewhere on a scale. The idea, of course, to improve the nature of how artificial intelligence can respond to natural language communication. In this case, it's all text-based input. There are different programs out there that do different things. ChatGPT is one of the ones that will take text and put out text in the form of articles, in the form of stories, in the form of social media posts, in the form of software code. What we're mostly talking about are those engines that take text prompts and put out artistic images of some sort. All of these things have been trained on some sort of database, some sort of set of whatever it is that they're supposed to output. The Chat GPT that puts out code, that was real simple. Open source GitHub, which has millions upon millions of lines of every kind of programming language you can think of, open source. People put it up there so other people can use it. That's nice and simple. The text ones are varied, but you just go to the Internet Archive and you can pretty much get almost any kind of written content that you need. The controversy, the greatest controversy, is over the databases that were used to train the image creators. The first databases that were used to train that, particularly from an organization called OpenAI, were made by scraper bots that took just Creative Commons images. So things that were put up there under open source so that anybody could use them for anything. The second and later generations were created by scraper bots creating anything or scraping anything that was on an open, publicly facing website. If there was an image that any person could look at that wasn't blocked by the things you can do to block those, it grabbed those images. Very commonly from sites like DeviantArt, where artists would put up their own work for other people to look at and comment on.
And to buy.
And buy, yes, and buy. Not always.
Not always.
SmugMug is one of those places where photographers can put up their work that other people can look at and buy if they want to let you. Nerd Caliber, since we do not sell those images, we don't have that turned on. So the situation right now is that artists who have put up their artwork on these sites that were scraped by the bots to build the data set that things like Stable Diffusion and other programs that are the back end behind applications like Lensa use to train the bot, the AI, on how to create these images from text inputs, may or may not have, depending upon your point of view, and actually I guess the legal status of what was done, stolen these images from artwork, from artists. At the very least, they certainly did not use them without direct consent given by the artist for this sort of use. So that's where we are now in talking about this. There are obviously ethical issues, there are moral issues, there are potentially legal issues. So what I'm going to start with is throwing out the biggest question is, of those three possible problems, which do you think is the one that's the most obvious an issue? Is it the ethics? Is it the morals? Or is it the legality? Anybody want to jump right in?
If I could jump in, I'm saying this from my perspective. Definitely, all three of them are for sure very, very important to look at in a bunch of different perspectives. The legality part of it, I think, is really detrimental to artists, because of essentially owning the art. If you don't own it, if you don't have the intellectual property within your hands, then anybody can do anything with it, and that actually affects the livelihood of a lot of artists that 100% rely on creating original art and original IP. Um, so I could see the legal part of it always at the early part of any sort of new technology or any sort of disruptor in any sort of an industry. The legal part of it, I think, is always raw, because there's always this catch-up game, right? Where when there's something new, or whether it's tech or some sort of disruptor in the industry, or whatever industry it is, more often than not, the legal aspect of it is nowhere, is touching nowhere on the subject, because it never existed prior, right? So there's a lot of catch up legal wise, right? And we've seen this a lot for other things before, like when drones first came out, right? So like drones introduced a whole slew of laws for like air rights, right? Whether it's legal or not to fly my drone over a public park, or in my neighborhood, or in a no-fly zone, or what have you, things like that, or even like DNA, right? Who has the rights to my DNA, right? If I take your hair and own things like that, like 23andMe and all these other
Right. I was
companies.
just going to say like Ancestry and all those.
Exactly, and it all, I feel like right now, short answer, right now, I think legal is at a very raw place right now, and for sure, I feel like there's definitely a lot of moral and ethic issues behind it, but at this very moment, it's at a very raw place in terms of legal.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Mo, absolutely. I think will become more clear where everyone stands on their own personal, which hill they choose to die on as this goes on. But unfortunately, the legality of it is extremely vague, because, I mean, literally no one has ever read the full terms and conditions of any website you've ever signed up for. To the point where South Park did an entire episode about the Apple terms and conditions.
I was gonna say
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna mention
they literally
that, actually,
own
yeah.
you a whole cloth. Every picture you put on Facebook, Instagram, any other social media, Twitter, you name it, you have agreed to for that website to use your intellectual property, your artwork, pretty much however they choose to use it. They and commercially too, because Facebook makes money off of everything that everyone on this call and everyone who hopefully will listen to this and watch this on YouTube later will ever do. Lensa obviously is what really kicked this off, because it was such a huge viral sensation over the last month. Crash, who's another contributor at Nerd Caliber, who wasn't here tonight, was the first person I saw that actually kind of unpacked the terms and conditions. And they basically said, if you choose to put 10 photos of yourself in our system to help train our software, and then we spit back out these, creative images of you, we own those in perpetuity. You have no rights to them any longer. You can't even come at us later and say, hey, I want those back. Those aren't yours. Right. They are. You've signed it away. I I'm not defending that. I have a huge problem with that. And I personally, because I work in the IT security industry, I'm incredibly wary of anything like that. There's a limit to what I will engage in, because I am somewhat aware of how this kind of stuff gets used.
Let me just, I think I want to clarify that point about Lensa. They say you have given them in perpetuity the rights to your images that you cannot take back. They don't own the images. That's not, I don't believe that's legally possible, that they can state that once you put it up there,
okay,
they own it and you do not.
Right. They're saying that they own the usage of the
Exactly.
images.
So, I mean, I hate to put it this way, but that's parsing. In the internet world, that's a meaningless distinction. It would be meaningful if it was, do you own this NFT of the Mona Lisa, or do you own the canvas that the Mona Lisa is on?
Well, except if they own it, they can stop you from ever doing anything with it. If they own usage rights to it, they get to do anything with it, and you still get to do anything with it.
Okay, fair. That's a good point.
But
to a large extent, I think that is kind of, it's parsing a fairly, splitting hairs to a degree is a better way to put it. We have all become the product. If we get things like Instagram for free, Facebook for free, we are getting the product for free by becoming their product. So until that fundamentally, or I shouldn't say until, unless or if that fundamentally changes, I don't know that we've really got a legal leg to stand on. We've all basically agreed, whether you like it or not, that if it's on Facebook, if it's on Instagram, and Instagram as a company decides that scraping bots can grab their data, sorry, I don't agree with it. I think it's fairly crappy, but
Right.
I have legally agreed to it.
I think you're right. I think that's, unfortunately, that's the nature of what the internet has been, even before social media. If something is up online and can be accessed, then it is available to be accessed for whatever purpose, as long as you don't take that purpose and pretend to have ownership of it. Now, one of the big questions there is the use of training intellectual property owned by other people but able to be seen by a commercial non-human product ethically or morally different than how I looked at everything Ben ever photographed and went, I want to do that. I want to do that. That's how I want to do that. How did he do that? And basically absorbing all of his imagery and turning it into what I created.
So that always bothers me, because what robots don't have is the human creative spirit and mind and that type of thing. It's literally just grabbing bits and things and just literally copying it, to the point where, some people have been posting images where you can literally see chunks of the original artist's like signature in mixed into the thing that they created, because they're taking such little pieces of everything to do. And I hate, because I agree with Greg. It's like I'm actually one of those weird people that kind of read through and was like, do I really want to do this? Because I don't want other people, I make money on my artwork, or used to, and that I just don't throw my stuff up there willy-nilly. I pulled stuff off of the internet over the years. I had to delete my DeviantArt about 10 years ago, maybe, because people were just stealing my artwork and literally selling my stuff, and I wasn't getting a cent for it. So I've done the sort of reverse search, I forget which the engine is, that they created to see if your stuff has been aggregated for.
Have I been
It's
trained?
have I been trained?
Yeah.
That's yeah. And I've found at least a dozen of my images on there, and it's all from things that I haven't posted. It's stuff that other, like, the cosplayers have posted, or like a online thing, not Nerd Caliber, but like Nerd Caliber, that sort of aggregates throughout and is like, oh, these are great cosplay pictures. I never got contacted that they posted it. They were just like, oh, hey, look at this cool thing we saw on Facebook. Here's a guy's artwork. That, like, there's been a couple actually that's
Like
funny
the
because
big
I
Instagram aggregators. There are a lot of those on Instagram.
exactly. So, and it's funny because there's been, I know how and when and where I posted certain things by the watermark that I leave on the image, because I have specific watermarks that if I do it via my phone or if I do it via the computer or whatever, I can see, and I know certain things are pulled from, I can, like, oh, those three were pulled from Instagram. That was pulled because it's like a crappy ass DPI. That was, early days of Tumblr, or you know what I mean? Like, so, like, I can actually tell,
it's back.
because I know, and I'm actually I deleted my Tumblr the day that they pulled all of my stuff off of Tumblr. 90% of it wasn't even nudity. I deleted my Tumblr, and I'm like, I'm never going back. Well, I just created a new Tumblr.
Never say never.
Somebody's squatting on my original username, so I'm like,
sure.
Yeah, I'm so mad. Yeah, I'm so
Wow.
mad. So I had to create. Yeah, but anyway, that's
Yikes.
a whole other story.
For
So
sure.
going back to what you were saying, the difference is, to me anyway, that a robot that's just literally copying things. So I had a teacher who was a really brilliant man who said that, like, no matter how perfect a counterfeit is, it's never going to be perfect, because there's some piece of you that is put into that piece that will make it different than the original artists. Like, no matter, even if you went down to like micro strokes and stuff like that, your brain and who you are as a person will make it unique. And with robots, they don't have that. They haven't been programmed for that, thankfully, yet. And all they're doing is just taking that thing. I just want this slice, here of this, but I'm only going to take this part, but I'm going to flip it and I'm going to put it over here. It's still that piece. They haven't done anything different to it to change it. And that's why, like, a copy of the Mona Lisa is always going to be a copy of the Mona Lisa.
Sure.
But if you take the exact pixels that the Mona Lisa photograph is made up of, and you copy that and you paste it over here, that's the exact same photographed, or like, digital image. They haven't changed anything for it.
So just one super quick, to me, that the difference is synthesis versus creation.
Yes.
When you as an art director, Mo as an art director, creative director, Rodney, you or I, putting together creative photo shoots, it's about the time that goes into who are the models, what does the set look like, what is my lighting design, where's the placement, how do I tell this person this is the emotion I want, or the look or the pose, whatever, and then sitting down at your computer, where frankly in digital photography most of the heavy lifting happens now, you're creating something whole cloth. I, as a photographer, readily cite my influences. The people that I've looked at, that I've studied, whose work I like, I'm influenced by that. That's entirely true in every creative endeavor in the human sphere: music, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, sculpting. Literally pick anything, and there are influences that are people that have influenced you. But you're creating something. You're not synthesizing 12 different sources that match search parameters. I think back to the who is it? Justice Warren, that said, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. It's a little akin to that in that, yeah, I mean, frankly, a lot of the images that I've seen, they're really cool. They're super funky. But that's because there's an artist who made really cool, really funky, interesting stuff at some point, and they figured out a way to take the halo effect with the cool background design and put your photo into it and make you look really cool in that photo. It's synthesis. There's something on that, on a visceral monkey brain level, speaking for myself, that knows Rodney made that photo. You know, Ben made that photo. Mo made that photo. This server built this image.
Now, before we get into continuing discussion about how intense and deep all of this is, a little bit of a sidebar for a break, because Ben, you brought this up. I'm going to ask who has searched for themselves on Have I Been Trained, and what was the biggest surprise? I'm going to start. I searched for just a lot Mad Moxie, and 10 out of the first 40 images were my photos of Jessica Nigri. So
wow.
Just absolutely blew my mind.
So,
so everybody jump in.
Yay?
Yeah. No, I mean,
this is why I don't take pictures of famous cosplayers.
There you go.
Right.
Joking.
So who searched, and what was the biggest result that you got, or the biggest surprise?
So I typed in cosplayer, just a general term cosplayer, and I can't name at the top of my head, but I've recognized a handful of cosplayers that I've either met at conventions or know of or seen around, which is pretty frightening, because I doubt anybody ever gave consent to that.
I did a bunch of different searches, mostly just typed in not specific cosplayers, but I just typed in cosplays that I've taken pictures of that I know were either popular or, you know, famous.
Like I did.
And the biggest one that came up actually was the Sabine Wren's photos that I shot of non-binate a while ago, but like that was probably the majority of them, and that was where I found a bunch of them that I know that I only posted either on Instagram or I didn't post anywhere. So that was very strange to me. So I didn't know where some of those came from. And then Power Girl, when I typed in Power Girl cosplay, a bunch of photos that I took of Precious cosplay, of JC cosplay came up, but it was just mostly just kind of randomly typing in what did I take picture of Princess Leia cosplay, you know, and doing that type of stuff, and it just random things would pop up. The first 6 of the 20 of the Sabine Wren were pictures that I took of non-binate cosplay. Yeah, it was totally weird. Like I honestly, and this is my weird total kind of aside, it's like my weird imposter syndrome that I always run up against is I'm like, oh, nothing of mine's ever going to come up. Nobody cares about me because I only have like 2,000 people on my Instagram or whatever. I'll just type this in, and I was like, what the fuck? Why is my stuff here, you know? So, and then just random things, like I typed in like Clone Wars cosplay, and a bunch of the stuff on Clone Wars came up that I took back in like 2007 at San Diego Comic-Con, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, and it's stuff that goes back to like 2004, 2004, you know, like like early that I don't even care about anymore. That,
as I've said for decades, nothing ever dies on the internet.
Oh, I know, and that's the thing. There's like I've found pictures that I took like I forget when my first con was, but it was like that I did photos for, but it was like 2003 or 2004, and I'll just be going through and be like, oh, that's a Boba Fett that I took a photo of in San Diego, you know, at the 501st booth or something. That's totally blows my mind. I'm like, you know.
Greg, have you done this search?
So I have. and very strange results. If I search for my name, everything that comes up is concert photos of D. Snider. Literally not a single photo I've ever taken that has my name on it. If I search for anything with Wonderllama Photography, Wonderllama Photo, it comes up with a shitload of cosplay photography, none of which is mine. So in a weird way, there's a bit of like, well, I was an altar boy, why didn't the priest like me?
I think you have to do what Ben and I did, is search for something that you know you took a photo of, the character or the particular intellectual property that it's from, and see whether or not that comes up. I searched, can you imagine what came up when I searched first-person shooter, even spelling it the way I spell it?
Oh my God. Huh.
It was just all game stuff, all first-person shooter games.
Fair.
Nothing. All right, so we, before this sort of sidetrack, we were moving pretty far into the, boy, this is creepy, and it's not really art. And that's not necessarily the nature of what the discussion here is. I want to try to keep it focused on how this affects people in the creative community. Is it ethical? Is it moral? Is it legal? Whether it's creepy or clearly not art.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the moral implications of using somebody's art without direct consent to train what is ultimately a commercial product. Who has a particular view on that, and whether it is something that is basically morally inappropriate to do to the artistic community? Go ahead, Greg.
I'll chime in. I'll flip that around and ask, how pwned am I if I take a photo of Boba Fett I find online and make t-shirts and sell them? I guarantee you that Disney's lawyers will hunt me down and send me a desist letter, or Mickey Mouse, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They'll send you Mickey Mouse?
It's the same thing. Yes, they will, actually. It's a very strange lawyers.
Mickey Mouse will actually come at you.
Yeah. But Mickey, it's made of C4.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing in the opposite direction. The only difference is their lawyers are a whole lot better than ours.
Right.
It's effectively doing the same thing. I didn't directly consent for any of this to be used. We could make the argument that we've all indirectly consented by virtue of signing a terms of service agreement with Facebook, Insta, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a moral and ethical issue around that. We all, whether it's professionally, semi-professionally, passion project, whatever, we work in artistic media. And it's hard enough for anybody who isn't Disney to make money with creative pursuits. For something else to be able to take that and do something and monetize work that I can't monetize, or I can monetize that much and they can monetize that much, I find that pretty morally dubious.
It's soul crushing.
It's soul crushing.
It's, to me, and this is just a sort of parallel, is the way that I feel as a photographer when I would post a photo of a cosplayer or a model, versus when the model posts the exact same picture and she gets 40,000 views and likes and I get 11. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not a hot chick, except for the people that think that I'm every single model in my DMs and ask me creepy questions. That's a whole other aside. But it's that sort of, it's morally crushing to know that, oh, I've been trying to sell this piece, or sell, cut prints of this art for like $5 to $6 for a print, and still sitting on 30 of them that I printed 35 of, and they just made a thing and they just sold 1 million things and made like $20,000 on it. And I'm like, what? Well, can I also maybe have a, tiny piece of that? Because that'd be great. And then, it makes me. I've literally, since this has happened, had almost zero motivation to do anything, meaning like artwork or creatively, because I'm just like, why? Because it's just going to get stolen and used to aggregate to create somebody's weird, I'm going to make a predator alien power girl fetish, with one of my photographs.
Hold it, I'm taking notes.
I got a bunch of those if you ever need it.
On a very...
Just a second, Greg, just hold on a second. Mo, you've tried to jump in at least twice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No,
Mo, I've got to let you know, Mo, we love our voices. So jump in hard. Trust me.
No, for sure. No, I wanted you guys to finish. I for sure wanted you guys to finish because I want to touch on something you, Benny, said earlier, as well as Greg. Benny, you mentioned how some of the machine learning takes like bits and pieces of the work, and it didn't quite figure out how to get rid of the signature or incorporate it as art, or even distinguish it as art or a signature, right? So it just takes Frankenstein chopped up pieces of it. Morally, that's just disgusting, because the whole point of a signature is to identify who is the author, right? And now it's just brutally massacring it and just pasting it onto what it considers art, right? And then Greg, you talked about the basically the rights and like the likelihood taking the likelihood of something, right? And then that made me think of like things like taking the likelihood of like different art pieces and things like that. So what if a brand comes up? You mentioned like Mickey Mouse, right? And if you have a Mickey Mouse on the art piece, it's very clearly Disney, right? It's indiscernibly Disney, and they own it. But what if it's a original character that I came up with, or Benny did like some sort of character design that's an original concept? But yeah, screw us. Like it's not Mickey Mouse. It's not in an obvious brand that half the population knows about. So there's a lot of moral and ethical implications there, where it's like screw the little guy, right?
Right.
So
or don't even consider the little guy. You're beneath consideration.
Right.
The thing that popped that. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I didn't want to. Sorry, I didn't mean to step over you.
No, I was done. You could go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing that I was going to go on with the signature thing is, to me, when I first saw that, like, it really was almost like the what's the word I'm looking for?
The smoking gun?
It was no. It was like an allegory, seeing all these like chopped up pieces of people's signatures mixed into the art, of like how little regard that they have for the artist, and like what they just that they don't even consider it like art, that these people's art, that they're like chopping, and it chops up the signature and incorporates it, because they're like, who cares who it is? This is part of the artwork, and it's as like sort of disregards the artist in completely. It became sort of like this weird allegory for me of like seeing the massacred signatures, which is supposed to represent who made this artwork, that these robots don't give a shit. They're just like, nope, who cares? Blah, 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 blah. And then it becomes part of the art.
Embarrassingly enough, it also does it for watermarks, for even like Shutterstock.
Exactly.
And that's just embarrassing. At that point, it's like the algorithm isn't even it's not even smart enough to.
It doesn't even consider it, and that's that's the crazy part.
So that,
right.
I mean, Ben, to your point, you're absolutely right, but we're kind of applying human concept around that.
Exactly.
AI does what it's programmed to do. If it's not give a shit about taking, if it says get art from any publicly accessible image, computers will do precisely that, no more, no less. If the programmers had said, we should be respectful of the original artist's IP in some fashion. I mean, obviously the whole thing falls apart with that hypothesis, but there would have been a way to distinguish a watermark and keep it, or a human signature and keep it in the synthesized final product. So the AI doesn't give a shit. It's human beings that have said, dear computer, don't give a shit about this. It's not in your remit.
Right, and that's what I was getting at, is that like it's such a disregard for the artists, but like, and sure, it's not the robots, it's actually the people that program the robots that are like, fuck that, I don't care, as long as it gives me the cool art that I need.
Exactly.
All right, so we're running long here, and that brings us wonderfully into what I want to do as sort of the wrap up. Ben, you said straight up, this is a chilling effect on you as a creator.
Yeah.
What is the effect? What is the potential effect? What is the current effect? And then the potential long-term effect of this on the business of art and artists? What really worries the hell out of you guys?
The thing that worries me the most is the effect that it's already having, where there are literal artists losing jobs already. And there was this great Twitter tweet thread that I read that didn't pertain specifically to art, but it was a professional interpreter and translator who was saying, like, guys, this is serious because it's already happened. What's happening in the art world right now has already happened to us. I lost my job as a translator, and a bunch of my friends who are translators lost our job because of Google Translate. And we now are getting paid a fraction of what we used to get paid to basically clean up crappy Google Translates, sometimes to the point where we're getting fractions of our original pay to basically have to retranslate the translation. So they're just basically starting from scratch and translating it anyway, and they're not getting paid what they used to get paid. And this basically AI basically has taken their job.
Yeah.
And so what's happening with the art world
from
is
personal
the same.
Experience on that end, things like Grammarly and other programs like that have taken the normal editing work of just copy line editors almost completely out of the mix. I was safe for a very long time because what I did was very technical, technology business story editing. And it's tougher to train an AI on the nuances of, particular types of, hypervisors and cloud and whatever. Except it's no longer that tough. And so I've felt that directly, how AI has done exactly that. Already taken a part of the creative and services industry. I said this in a tweet, I think. Who would have thought that the robots that were supposed to come and take all of our manufacturing and labor jobs are taking the creative service jobs?
Right. And I get it that this has been happening, obviously, like robots on assembly lines and everything have been taking jobs for, decades now, but it's you never thought that and like that, to me, it's like that is such a mechanical, very specific thing that, you as humans, we kind of are like, oh, well, that's what robots do. You never think like, oh, robots are going to make a Rembrandt painting. You don't think like, oh, they're going to take away the idea that somebody can go in and take these beautiful photographs or create these beautiful, concept art pieces. And I think that to me is what's the most chilling. Was the robots were supposed to be very concrete, functional, non-creative, with an imagination. They just did these, again, robotic things, that assembly line things, and to see them kind of like going, nope, we can now make art. And granted, they're making art by stealing other art.
But you can make the argument, kind of going back to what I was just saying, they are doing exactly the same mechanical, rote type of process.
Right. No, and exactly. That's
you
the
know,
thing. It's
an
not
arm
art.
that swoops and drops a car door on, and then somebody comes in, and then another one welds it, isn't really that much different from training a server to be able to take German and translate it into Russian,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think your term for it is actually a great term for the evolution of sort of assembly line concatenation in a linear line into what is now synthesis.
I would
taking
call
a
it
big
artificial
pool of
versus
stuff.
human. It doesn't really matter whether it's a cyborg, a robot, an armature, or a rack full of servers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're all programmed to do a function that can be performed mechanically by direction, time after time after time after time, with virtually complete accuracy. I mean, a year from now, we won't even be having this conversation about AI that has 7 fingers and the nose is 4 feet long. Those bugs are going away.
Yeah, it's moving exponentially. Like they've already started to correct a lot of those problems already, and it's only been like a few months since it's been sort of public knowledge.
And the irony is, the point that they make is, you need to feed us more so we can make the things we're stealing from you look better.
Right.
We need to steal more.
Yeah.
It's we need to steal more. Exactly. It's number 5 from Short Circuit on methamphetamines.
Kids, look that movie up.
Yeah,
input.
For sure.
Oh yeah, I'm also old, so.
So
to going back to your original question, and kind of to what to alluding to what Ben was saying, I strive to make enough money to pay for my equipment, to cover my studio expenses. I don't do this for a living. I don't pay my mortgage with photography. So my take on it is a little bit different. I love the creativity of it. I love what I make with people. I love projects where I can get 2, 3, 4, 5 people together. This is what we want to do. You bring this to the table, you bring this to the table, and we make something cool. If 1,000 people see it and like it, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, I'll use the example I was talking about at the top of the show. Big project that we did with all of my studio partners, with Ben and his wife Liz. We all brought, in this case, literally to the table, a lot of different skill sets. And the final product, the photography was fantastic. The image was still incredible. But the day everybody spent in the studio bringing their expertise, priceless. Their creativity was magical. This isn't going to change that for me. I hate it. But me personally, it's not going to change my creative existence. What I did have a conversation about this weekend were 2 young photographers that were just trying to get started, not trying to make money, not looking to be a photography wedding second shooter to get into the business, modeling photography, cosplay photography, that are already feeling, what the hell, why bother? Why do I even want to do this? Why do I spend X dollars on equipment and classes?
That's heartbreaking.
The 10,000 photos you take before you're a good photographer, whatever that is, that just, to talk to people in their 20s who are like, should I keep doing this? Is there a point, or will a computer just do it better than me? And yeah, it was like,
yeah. I have a lot of illustrator friends and comic book artist friends who are, they have younger sort of like people that they're mentoring, and they're like, all their younger people are like, what's the point? All the jobs are going to be taken by these robots. Because that's another big thing, is that writers who have never been able to find artists for their stories, whether they be good or bad, regardless, now can just basically be like, oh, I always wanted to have my comic book illustrated by Frank Miller. And then it's like, your crappy story is now being crappily drawn like Frank Miller. Great. But then you Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're running
Mo-
up against it. Just a second, Greg. We're running
Mo.
up against it. So I'm going to give Mo as
Yes, I was just going to say.
probably the person who is closest to the commercial end of art on all of us here. Mo, give us the last word on that. On where do you see this going? What does it mean for your community, your business community, and the future of it?
Yeah, I'll say three things. Okay, so at first I'm gonna start with a funny example, just to lighten up the mood, but also not really. So when I first started in advertising, um, like 10 years ago, there was this one example of well, first of all, there was a lot of inspiration that I drew personally from advertising done in the UK, and the advertising in the UK is a lot more unforgiving than it is here in the States, and they get away with a lot of things like cursing, not safe for work, things like that. It brings it home to like a more memorable experience, and like more out of the box thinking or what have you. So long way of saying, there's this one example where there was a commercial that was done for, I think it was herpes or some sort of STD commercial, and right, and there was this model that was used for whether it was makeup or swimsuit model
It
or
was
something like
stock
that.
modeling.
A stock modeling, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the same model that was used for one of these STD commercials, and you had them side by side, and this, and now like fast forward 10 years, look at where we are now. Now imagine the art side of that. It's because when you have stock models, right, the rights of your likelihood or your photography, right, anybody can use it in any way once they have the rights of it. So I could see a lot of those implications translating in the art side of things. So I definitely keeping an eye open for that, and scared of seeing how that's going to be in the future. Also, Stable Diffusion actually mentioned. I actually read this yesterday, where and this is pretty interesting. They forfeit when you create something from using Stable Diffusion, you forfeit all of your IP rights based on what was shot out as an output. So they're acknowledging that it should be used more as used sparingly, more as like across the lines of fair use, the fair use laws, fair use doctrine.
So let me clarify that. So they're saying that you forfeit your commercial rights to that. You cannot say, make me a picture that looks vaguely like Frank Miller's style of, my OG comic book character. And if whatever Stable Diffusion puts out, you can't then put that on a t-shirt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what's exciting about that.
I'm getting very small golf claps for Stable Diffusion for that.
Yeah, very small.
Yeah. Very small.
Yeah.
That being said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say, getting back to my Disney example, who's going to enforce that?
Right. Exactly. And I'm going to get to that and I love that you brought that up, because now how do we enforce that? How is, like, what's the laws going to look like in the future, right? If I do want to apply this to, say, commercials, like that advertising example I gave, or what can I do with this, right? How can it be used? I'm really excited to see what are not the band-aids, but moving forward, what is the proper place for this tool to be used? Where does this tool belong in the toolbox, in the toolkit, and where should it be used? So I can see things like having full transparency on what's the metadata behind it, right? It's like what are the exact prompts that are used, what are the exact applications that were being used to generate this, what was scraped, where was it scraped from? So having the full metadata completely available, having the author, a full history of all the authors that were involved, so there can be some credit being used, and that's why the fair use doctrine was very interesting to me, because you for sure can't use it for things like a giant billboard that's going to bring in like millions of revenue, or on a t-shirt that's going to potentially get viral. And my last point is that, just to close this out here, is um, at my job, we work a lot on futurescaping. So imagining the future of a brand, right? The future of the brand's products, right? And trying to concept different ways that different audiences live their lives with what this concept looks like in the future. And a lot of these things you can't quite find using stock photography. A lot of these things you have to create yourself. You have to concept it on a board. You have to Photoshop. You do a lot of Photoshop magic, do a lot of original illustrations, and concept what the future of this product may or may not look like. That's what a lot of the futurescaping work entails. And I feel like AI art has a really interesting place in that sort of field, because it's not the end output. It's more so the concepting phase, right? And it's and that falls perfectly in line of the fair use doctrine, where it's more used for educational purposes. It's used more for like a nonprofit phase of things. It's more used for research. So I do feel like there is a place for it. But since there are no laws, and the laws are lagging because because it's moving, the technology is moving way quicker than the laws. That's usually what goes on with new tech.
Always, yeah.
So that's where we are right now.
Excellent. I gotta say, I did not expect to end this discussion on a slightly encouraging note.
Well, so
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So really quickly, going back to what Mo was saying, the thing that I love about the AI and stuff like that is that if you're a film, and goes to my filmmaker, like there's a bunch of people that have typed in like, what if Wes Anderson made Alien, or what if Jodorowsky made Tron, and these insane concepts have come out where like some of the stuff that you output that they've been outputting is just like mind-bogglingly cool. And I think in that aspect, like if you're we're making a movie with I don't know, like Owen Wilson and Mila Jovovich and this other person, but we want it to like, and they're coming just up with the concept idea and being like, what if it was like sort of like El Topo meets this and this, and then you type that stuff in, and then the concept artist and the director can get a brilliant, like sort of like he can explain his idea better by like doing that. But that's not your end product. That's just like you're using it as your like mood board or whatever, your concept board.
It's a tool in the box.
And it's a tool. Yeah, exactly. It's your tool in your box. And so that end of it I find amazing and I love. And I follow a couple of Facebook groups where it's like stuff like that, where they're like, that's their sort of concept. They're like, oh, what if Dune was made by what was it? Oh no, it was Lord of the Rings was made by Jim Henson. And like there's just like these mind-blowing ideas that are in there. But then if you were to take that and then go to the Henson Studios and go to like the Tolkien thing and be like, could we do this? Then they would have an idea as to what you're kind of talking about.
I'd like to see a flip of that. What if Denis Villeneuve made Muppets Take Manhattan?
Perfect. Exactly. But so stuff like that.
It would be 7 hours long.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good point. All right, folks.
So that stuff would be phenomenal, but like the other is just the stuff that really upsets me. Anyway.
Yeah. So if there is a slight positive to take away from here, it looks like there is, at least at some level, the idea of restricting this to a creative tool instead of a blanket replacement for commercial art.
Right.
And if that's,
again, it's like a tool. Yes. If you use it as a tool, as a part of the process,
yeah,
and then the end process, at the end product,
yep,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now that hasn't answered the question ultimately, and I think this is the question realistically for the courts, of how illegal the actual training and creation of this tool was. And I don't think we are legal experts who are able to answer that.
Yeah.
So I think we've reached
Right.
our limit of being able to discuss that. But I think we did have a great discussion about this. Thank you all for joining me here. And I think we hopefully provided a little bit more nuance and takes and information for everybody who's going to be watching this. So thank you all, gentlemen. Have happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
And we will see all of you at various other things that we'll be doing here at Nerd Caliber or at conventions or, studios taking pictures of, tables of food or, stuff like that. Anyway, good night, everybody. Good night, everybody watching. Happy holidays for all of you out there. And we will see you at some other thing coming up. If nothing else, Nerd Week Live on the Tuesday of whatever week this happens to come out. Bye-bye.